kids.
Fuck the kids?
Yeah.
When I say, who's the master? You say, so no.
What is up? What is good, guys? Showing up the King here, back with another video, and today I wanted to talk about the G.I. Joe Skystriker Haslab. I know you guys have already watched my video. In the video I uploaded is the Haslab Skystriker overpriced. If you haven't had an opportunity to look at that video, I will link it in the description below. But this video is going to be more of a rant. We are coming close to the end of this Haslab Skystriker campaign, and we have not hit the initial 10,000 goal. And again, for my piece in this, again, I have already backed this thing with at least I myself have gotten 3 Skystrikers, and it is struggling. And again, I wanted to just kind of come out and just discuss my thoughts on what people are saying online on why they don't want to back it. Some of these things are valid. Some of these things, in my eyes, are just completely ridiculous. And I kind of wanted to just talk about that in general, because I do think that it's time that we start holding some of the people in our community accountable for all their toxic behavior, and just overall their entitlement. Like, there are a lot of people out here where they're in these forums and they're on these like Facebook groups, and they're just saying some like really wild shit, and and to me it's just like shocking. And again, this is coming from somebody who can go with the best of them when it comes to talking shit. But I digress. So before I get started, let's talk about the current status of this Haslab. So as you guys can see on the screen, I have put up the current information that we have on the Skystriker, and as of the recording of this video, which is being done on December 1st, the Skystriker has about 6 days, 13 hours, and 12 minutes remaining, and it has about 5,876 backers, which puts it at about 58%. And you can also see here on the other side, the Rancor is at about 4,925 backers, and it has crawled back up, but it had lost a lot of people. Again, I will mention a Rancor later on at the end of this video, with some thoughts on that, but for right now I want to kind of just focus on the Skystriker. All right, so one of the biggest issues is the cost of the Skystriker. That has been one of the biggest things that people have been complaining about. Now, me personally, I don't think that the Skystriker is overpriced. I think it's priced fairly. I'm actually even more convinced that it's priced fairly, and again, hopefully I'll be able to convince you guys as well with logic, and you won't come in here with, you know, craziness, but we'll get to that as well. So again, I've done a lot of research and just trying to understand the mind of the collectors who are upset at this campaign. And and from my understanding, there are a couple of people, you're in a couple of different camps. And if you are in this camp, I want to just let you know that, again, this video is not for you. So I don't want everybody coming at my throat, because again, this shoe doesn't fit every foot. Okay. So one thing that I do want to acknowledge is that there are some valid criticisms as to why people don't want to back this thing. Number one, if you are not backing this Haslab because you are a G.I. Joe 6-inch scale classified collector only, this video is not for you. Because again, I get it. Up until about 4 to 6 months ago, I was the same as you. Like, I never collected 3 1/4 inch or 4-inch action figures. My lines were strictly 6-inch figures, and at the maximum, I would go up to about a 7. Okay, that was it. It wasn't until like about 4 to 6 months ago is when I kind of got opened up into the 3 1/4 inch to 4-inch, or basically the 1/18 scale. And now that I'm in that scale group, I completely understand the importance of the Skystriker. But if you only collect the classified line and your biggest complaint is that the classified line is what's hot, they should have done a Skystriker or a His Tank or a All Striker in the 6-inch scale, then that is your complaint. That is a valid complaint, but the Haslab is not about that. So if that is your argument, I'm not going to argue against that because that's your preference. It's the 6-inch scale. And if they're not going to do a 6-inch scale figure, I don't have any beef against that. All right. Now, the second group of people that I figure that your excuse is valid is if you're just simply saying that you can't afford it. Bottom line, it is December 1st. This thing is supposed to close in the next 6 to 7 days. We are weeks away from Christmas. And if you're like me, I had a lot on my plate. Again, you know, this 2021, we're still suffering from COVID. So if you're sitting here and you're simply saying that this was bad timing on Hasbro's part and you can't afford it, you really want this thing, but at that cost right now, your finances can't handle it, then again, I cannot argue with you on that. I can't talk about your financial situation. Again, I am fortunate enough where I have put things into place where I can afford these things. This is a hobby, and I understand that this is a luxury. So if you are going to get into this, you need to be able to have the funds to support that hobby because, again, it is not a necessity, it is a luxury. And if I'm being quite honest, again, Hasbro does have some have to have their feet held to the fire because they did throw a lot of stuff at us this year. Again, the Galactus Haslab has been funded. I got that as well. Hell, I got 2 Galactuses, as a matter of fact. And then they did a Transformers Haslab with the Victory Saber. I ended up getting that. There was another one that was a Kickstarter one that was done for the, and again, you guys have probably seen that video I did for that as well, where there is a MX Skull fighter jet and a 1/18 scale. I ended up getting that as well. So right there, that's a lot of money. Like, again, fortunately for me, I have a credit card that I use for emergency big purchases for my, and again, when I say emergency, I don't mean like a bursted pipe or anything like that. What I do is I have a credit card that I use for my action figures that are above a certain threshold of cost. And what I can do then is I have that, it gives me options to then pay that off over the course of the next couple of months. And then by the time these things release, I can sometimes make my money back to go ahead and pay off these cards that I used to get them in the first place. Again, I am a reseller as well. I don't think that is a shock to anybody. But again, what I resell, I end up using to go back and fund my hobby. And again, this is not a video for people to say, oh, you're whatever. I am reinvesting into my hobby, and I don't have any issues with that, and I'm not ashamed of that. That's why I'm saying it right now. So, but again, if you're saying that you can't afford this campaign right now because of funds, I completely understand, 100%. Like, I get it. Like, again, if not for my other revenue streams, I would be in the same position as a lot of people. And again, I will have to, again, fault Hasbro because, again, that's just a lot of stuff. Not to mention the classified stuff. They announced like 12 different figures. Plus, they also announced the Bat and the Alley Vipers that that can potentially hit before the end of 2021. So, again, if you're saying that that's the reason why you're not backing it, again, no issues. Where I do have issue with are the folks that are saying that this Skystriker, the reason why they're not backing the Skystriker is because it's overpriced and that Hasbro is being greedy and that this thing should only be about $100 or $70 and it should be at retail and da-da-da-da-da. These are the people that I have issues with because, again, to me, it just shows a sense of entitlement and a lack of knowledge when it comes to how things work in business. I'm not sitting here professing that I understand the ins and outs of Hasbro's business models and things of that nature. I'm not, but again, as a collector, a collector of multiple different lines and multiple different price ranges, I understand the value of things and how much things cost because I have paid for dollar store toys. I have paid for basic, mainline stuff like Marvel Legends. I've also paid for expensive figures when we're talking about SH Figure Arts, Mayfex, which is like $80 to $90. And I've even dabbled in higher end figures above that, which are going to cost you well over $200 to $300. And in there, I'm talking about flame toys. I'm talking about hot toys. I'm talking about things of that nature. So I have bought figures from every spectrum, and I understand exactly what you're getting for that value. So again, I am in a unique position where I feel like I can understand exactly where these are coming from. But there are a lot of people out there who don't understand it. So that's why I want to talk about and break down the cost of this Skystriker. Again, now, if you watch my first video, I kind of took a different approach to the Skystriker. And again, right now, people are complaining because Skystriker, as you can see here, is $229.99. And they're saying that, the Skystriker that came back out in the 80s was about $15.99. And the one that came out in 22, I think it was like 2011, was like $20 and blah, 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 blah. And here's the issue that I have with, vintage collectors in the majority. If you are pricing this Skystriker from 2021 based off of what you paid for it back in the 80s, then you're crazy as fuck, okay? Like, materials, everything has changed, okay? Like, you cannot expect this thing to cost relative to what you paid for it back 40 years ago. 40 fucking years ago. You cannot expect to pay fucking $100 for something that comes with this much stuff and think that is the correct price that Hasbro should be. So you want Hasbro for $100 to give you the Skystriker, a flight stand, 2 figures, and a weapons rack, all that for $100 in 2021? You're fucking kidding me. Okay. Anyway, but you know what? Let me indulge you real quick. So what I've done is I am going to build a Skystriker like the one Hasbro has, based off of what's currently out there, and then we're going to come to a consensus on what the value of this Skystriker that Hasbro is buying us. So let's start things off here. So right now, if you can see here, as I have up on my screen, here is the Skystriker XP-14 Combat Jet. Wave 2, year 1983, retailed at $14.99 when it first came out. Here is a price history graph of how much the Skystriker is selling for right now. If you want a Skystriker right now, here is your only option. So this is for me. If you already have a Skystriker and you're sitting back and you're being smug, like, yeah, I already got about 5 or 6 of my Skystriker is still in box. This don't apply to me. Fine, good for you. Here's a fucking cookie. But for people like myself who just got into 3¼ inch to 4 inch scale figures, I don't have a Skystriker. And I'm not about to go out and pay $250 fucking dollars for a 40-year-old Skystriker that you've been playing with in your goddamn closet. Not gonna happen. So, if you look at eBay sold auctions right here, the average price of an auction is $244.98. If you just buy it now, straight up, $289.60. That is a in-box Skystriker. So right here, to get a vintage Skystriker for anybody who does not currently own one, is $240 to $280. Yet, you want to complain that a Skystriker that comes with hundreds more value is at $229 is a ripoff? Stop it. All right, but you know what? Let's go ahead and do it this way. So if you go here and you go to the lowest found is for an auction was $149.99 and $139.99 buy now. That is the lowest. So we're going to split the difference and we're going to say, hey, let's build a Skystriker for $149.99. That if I want a Skystriker right now, and I'm going to lowball it. I'm not going to go to $250 because again, I think at the $250 boxed up, that's what you're paying. But we're going to go ahead and say that, oh, we're going to pay it for $149.99. All right. So I'm going to get my calculator out. $149.99. All right. Plus, let's talk about it. Now, with that Skystriker, there is a display stand. So what I have here is a website called Display Stands Direct. If you want a Skystriker stand, it will run you $27.99. And not only that, that is only in one position. So you have to pay a landing. You can choose landing, banked, or vertical flight. Each one of those are $27.99. The stand that the Hasbro comes with, look at the stand. This stand is in a 3-position flight stand, which means it can be in the position of being banked, landing mode, banked, and vertical flight. That one stand that is included in the base offering, not a tier unlock, is already included, and it can hit all three of these positions that you would have to buy on an acrylic stand. Not to mention that the actual G.I. Joe Skystriker also has space for you to put all your rockets and all your missiles and things and effect pieces on it. So let's add this up. Let's say if I wanted to get all the same value that I'm getting from the Haslab Skystriker base, that would mean I would have to get all three of these at $27.99 each. All right? So let's do that. Let's go back to the calculator and do plus $27.99 plus $27.99 plus $27.99 equals $233.96. And that is just with the base plane and the figure, because what I'm doing is that with this Skystriker, it comes with one figure. So I'm going to include Ace in that price of the $149. So right here, for just the plane and the flight stand, to make it equal to what Haslab is giving you, is $233.96 for someone like myself who does not have a Skystriker currently and who does not want to pay for that vintage one, okay? Let's continue. Also, Hasbro is giving you an additional figure. You're getting Wayne Russell, the co-pilot that was never included in the original Skystriker. If you were to buy him from a regular third-party G.I. Joe customizer, I have here Big Boy Collectibles. The running cost of custom G.I. Joe figures, these are just like painted like O-ring characters, like $20, $30 right here. Accessories, guns, $199, things of that nature. Okay, so that's another $30 to get the co-pilot. And again, I'm lowballing at this point. So what we're going to do is we're going to add plus $30. And now we're up to $263. Okay, but we're not going to stop there, right? So if you go back to the Skystriker, you can also see that, again, when we're talking about these unlocks, so right now, if we get 18,000 back, you're not going to have to pay more for these unlocks. So when Hasbro set up this price for the Skystriker, they were expecting that to be all in, meaning that all these unlocks would have been included. So you would have to add in, again, this is a carded, unreleased, brand new Scarlet figure, okay? So even if I were to say, give it to you at retail, that's another $20. But this carded figure, once this thing released, once this thing is released, you're going to easily be able to get $100 for that on eBay, especially if it's carded. $100, easy. This thing is going to be worth. Even if you go back down to the Night Force color ripcord, customs for this figure right now are like in the $80 to $90 for a custom ripcord if you want to buy one right now. Trust me, I checked. And on top of that, if you get this one, again, it's carded, which means if you want to sell this, you will be able to sell this thing for $100 easy. Easy. And then finally, we have the pit crew where you have the O-ring action figures. And again, these are if you get all the backers. But again, you don't have to pay more if this thing meets the real goal. So in this initial price of $220, Hasbro is including all of this plus the actual fuel tank, plus all of the missiles and all of the other stuff. Not to mention, again, if you want to kit out your Skystriker with stickers, that's another $30 right there. The Haslab is giving you $30, giving you a minimum $30 worth of stickers because you can kit it out however you want. So let's go back to the calculator. Add the stickers. Plus 30 equals, we're at $293. And then and again, I'm just going to go retail. I'm not even going to go what you will actually be able to pay for once these things actually fund. So let's say $20 for Scarlet. So wait, so $293.96. I messed up. Let me make sure. 293.96 plus 20. Now we're at 313. So let's add another 20 for the midnight ripcord. See, I'm all messed up. All right, yeah. So 333.96. And then let's add another 40 for the flight crew. We're talking about $350. And again, I probably messed up the math because I cleared it out, but you get the point. Okay? So we're talking, and again, that is if we're talking just someone trying to build a Skystriker that is not what Hasbro has to offer right now. And again, I'm not even including the missiles or the flight stand, or I'm sorry, I'm not the flight stand, the flight effects, the jet effects, the exhaust effects, all of that stuff. The fact that Hasbro went through the tooling, and on average, it's about $25,000 or $30,000 to get the molds for these things. So that is where my frustration comes from. So when I hear people that say this thing is overpriced, I just think that you're just being ridiculous, or you just want this thing to fail because you're not looking at things logically. So that is the breakdown of the cost. And again, when Hasbro is making these things, they are making these things knowing that they're going to potentially get to the highest backer. So they're saying, hey, if we get the maximum amount of people to get this thing back, and we already know that the maximum amount that they expected was 18,000. So for 18,000 Haslab Skystrikers, it's going to cost the person $229.99. And again, if you choose to, if you are smart enough to then take that thing and then it becomes an instant investment piece. I have sat here, and again, I have seen people who gotten the Sentinel, who has taken the extra heads for the master mold and sold those for like $60 to $80, who have taken the figures that came uncarded for that Sentinel and sold those things for like $80 to $100 each. You could easily make your money back if you wanted to. So again, like when I hear people say that this thing is overpriced and it should be in stores, it's stupid because of the simple fact that you guys don't understand that space is a premium at these at these retail stores. So yes, you're not going to see this Skystriker at a Target or a Walmart. They're not gonna mass produce something like this without knowing if it's going to sell or not. But based off what you guys are thinking, and I've heard people say this, they seem to think that G.I. Joe is Hasbro's biggest selling brand, which is absolute crazy to me. Because again, it's clearly Marvel Legends, Star Wars, and Transformers. Those are their biggest brands right now. Damn sure ain't G.I. Joe. The only thing that G.I. Joe has right now is classified. And yes, it's doing well, but that's actually kind of artificial because of the shortages of figures that has been thus far. But by far, it's Marvel Legends, Transformers, and Star Wars. So yes, this is a untested waters for them. They're not going to sit here and reproduce all these different Skystrikers and try to throw these on the shelves and expect them to go flying off the shelves. G.I. Joe is not a proven brand yet. And I hear people in these comment sections that are saying things like, oh, I hope this fails and that'll teach them and then it'll push them to bring it out at retail. That's not going to happen, because what's going to happen is if this thing does not fund, it's going to just show Hasbro that the people don't care enough about it. There's not going to be like, oh, dang, we really screwed up. Let's go ahead and produce hundreds of thousands of these and put them out at retail at $100. They're not going to do that. And if anybody is saying that, then it's just, you're not smart. And again, let me be clear. I want to make this very, very clear. If this does not fund, it's not going to be the end of the world for me. So don't think that I'm doing this because I'm trying to force people, because again, at the end of the day, I have a lot of other things that I'm looking forward to. So if this Skystriker, whether this Skystriker funds or not, is not going to be the end of the world for me. I'm just making this video mostly because, again, I'm sick and tired of hearing all these people in these forums talk crazy about what they think the value of something is, and based off of this, and they're trying to say, oh, it should be $100, it should be $80. Fuck all that. I'm sick of hearing this. So this is what the main reason why this video is here. Now, one of the other things that I've heard, and again, it just really, really grinds my gears, is saying that Hasbro is being greedy and trying to basically say that they're making too much money. We should basically give this away for free, which to me is just the epitome of stupidity. Like, how do you as a person try to dictate how much a company should be making money off of a product that they make? Does anyone go to a Tesla or write to Jeff Bezos and say, hey, you're making I'm sorry, Jeff Bezos, he's the guy that owns Amazon. No one goes to a Tesla dealership and say, hey, the owner of Tesla is making way too much money. You guys should be selling these Teslas at a cheaper price. No. Because Tesla's a luxury brand. If you want that car, you pay what they tell you you're going to pay for it. Period. But for some reason, fans think that if a toy company brings out a toy and in their head, they're basing that price off what they paid for back 40 years ago, and they're trying to say, well, 40 years ago, I only paid $15 for it. So now, if you do the inflation of 40 years, it should only be about $50. That's not how that works. It just doesn't work that way. So, okay. So the last few things I want to talk about before I get out of here is there is, I think, a concerted effort by a large amount of vintage collectors who want this to fail simply because they don't want to devalue what they currently have. And I actually have proof to back this up. So I think I mentioned in a video or two of mine probably about a month or so ago, where I went out to a con on the East Coast to look for vintage G.I. Joes. Again, I ended up going to this store that sold G.I. Joes. It was store-based wise, it was one of the coolest places I've ever been to in my life. This guy literally had every G.I. Joe vehicle that had ever been released all over his store. And I mean, he had everything. He had Marvel Legend figures, he had G.I. Joe, he had everything, all types of military figures. I was like a kid in a candy store. But I had an interesting conversation with him, and first things first, all of his G.I. Joe figures, all of his G.I. Joe vehicles were absurdly overpriced. Like, again, it literally was like he went to eBay and priced every single one of his vehicles based off of what they were selling on eBay. Again, I'm not hating on his business model. I would damn sure never buy that, but if that's what he wants to price his things at, more power to him. Again, that's capitalism at its finest. You price things however you want, but you can't expect people to buy that shit at that price. And I would never buy a 40-year-old toy. I don't care if you could call it vintage, because to me, vintage just means it's old. It doesn't intrinsically give it value just because it's old. And I think that's what people try to do. They try to say, oh, this is 40 years old. It's going to cost $250 for a Skystriker. No. Because I already know that when they made those toys back in 40 years ago, those things were churned out in mass production. They were not made for quality. They were made to sell multiple copies of. So I had a conversation with him. We were talking about O-rings. Because me personally, I don't care about O-ring figures. I like the G.I. Joe retro figures with modern articulation. I don't care for the O-rings. I just never did. I thought they were ugly. I thought they did not have a lot of detail to the face. And quite honestly, the O-ring figures that are even being included with the Skystriker, I don't really love. I don't really love them. I would much rather have a retro figure. That's why I want to know from Hasbro personally if the 4-inch retro figures will fit in the Skystriker. Because to me, that would be a bigger detriment to me than this O-ring figure. Because honestly, the only one I would probably keep is Ace, and then I would sell the other ones because I just do not like O-ring figures. I like retro. But again, I digress. So I was having a conversation with this guy, And he told me that he didn't like the O-rings. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, why would you hate O-rings? I'm like, I'm looking around your store and all you were selling is O-rings. And what he told me is that, and again, I was surprised he was so honest about it. He literally said he did not like O-ring because it took down the value of his older stuff. And I was just like, I kind of like smiled him off, like, oh, okay, yeah, sure, that's good, that's cool, I guess I get it. And then I went off to go look at some other things. But it actually told me something that was very concerning. It tells me that a lot of these people are bad actors. They sit there, they complain about these figures that, oh, it's too expensive. But what they're really saying is that they don't want to devalue their current collection. Because right now, if you look at what Hasbro is offering from the new O-ring line, it is nothing but positive. They're redoing the hands so that they're made of a different material that won't snap when you put weapons in their hands. And they're making the O-rings themselves out of a different material that won't stretch, snap, and fall apart at later after you've kept them. So I'm like, if you look at the actual O-ring, those are the only major changes they did that were improved upon. Everything else then looks exactly like the old O-ring figures. So why would you have any issues with that unless you think it's going to devalue your old O-ring figures if these things become big and then they start being reproduced? Because right now, if you look up the cost of an O-ring Snake Eyes and an O-ring Storm Shadow, those things are going for hundreds of dollars. But if this one comes out at $40, it basically devalues the old ones that you paid for back in the day. So to me, it just shows that there are a lot of people out there who don't want this Haslab to succeed just simply because they don't want people to they don't want other people to end up buying the new stuff, which means that they won't either have the ability to sell that stuff at ridiculous prices or their internal prices that they have set up, because there are a lot of people who hold on to toys just because they know it's worth a lot of money. Even if they don't have any intentions of selling it, it just gives them a dopamine release to say, oh yeah, I got this boxed up Skystriker and it's worth $250. I don't plan on selling it, but as long as this is the only Skystriker that's available, I'll always have that great feeling, which is just crappy. So that's it. Rant's over. This has been about a 30-minute video. If you guys have any questions, you want to go at it, let me know in the comment section below. Let me know your thoughts. This is Shut Up the King, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.